more artillery has just been called on you. You're walking around it. Okay, you can hear. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's cool effects on the ground. So it's like, okay, I like that. I like the sound of that. Nice thud, thump. Hey, what's going on, guys? Phil here with podcast 201. Today's guest is Chris Lowrey, game designer for Piranha Games. How are you doing, Chris?
Doing good, Phil. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Obviously, crazy times, post and during all this craziness in the world.
Oh, yes.
I'm hoping you and the wife are healthy and safe. And I mentioned this before we started recording. I'm digging The Office, man. Like, this is total, like, BattleTech, Mechwarrior nerd, like, everything. Like,
for just this one little corner of the
Is that your
office,
corner?
so-
Like, yeah.
Well, we just moved in to a new place a few weeks ago, so this is pretty much just something I can throw together. I still have a bunch of stuff pretty much that's still in progress. Have like a disassembled Uziel in the corner there and everything.
Yeah. One of these days, I don't know how I'd get it back to the States and across the entire continent, but I'm going to get that Timberwolf one in their window at Piranha Games. I'm going to get it. I don't know how. I'm going to get that cutout of that Timby. It's going to happen.
Yeah, the Uziel that I've got in the corner over here was one of those stand-ups for the Mechwarrior 4 Vengeance game that came out way back when I had a friend that was working at this place called EBX, which was the precursor to GameStop. That's
Gotcha.
what they call themselves these days.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right, man. Well, I dig it, and like I said, we were talking about a few of the things like minis, and you've got the resin Timberwolf, which in my opinion looks better than the vinyl one. I think it's got that iconic slender, lethal, I don't know, sort of. I've always liked that sort of aesthetic. So yeah,
I've got the Armorcast Bad Dog back there somewhere too. So
yeah, dude. I remember growing up and like wanting those so bad, but at the time, I don't even remember what they were. I mean, I think they were like $90+ now. I don't even know how much they are. So
they're about 100, 120 when they first came out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but
back in the 90s.
Yeah, and then So, all right, dude, I've got you here for a few reasons. For those that are out there, we're going to be talking about the Mechwarrior 5 DLC that's coming out, and that's what Chris has actually been working on for the most part for the past, like, eight months, I think, or in
Something
general?
Like that.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as working with the Mech 5 stuff, how long have you been working on that?
I started about 7 months, I would say, before release. So
Okay.
I wasn't really a part of the core team that kind of put the game together. I kind of came in at the very end to, take a pass at the systems, put the finishing touches on the stuff, but also, kind of lay the groundwork for what we really wanted to target for Heroes of the Intersphere.
Okay, and that's, of course, the DLC that we're going to be talking about. I've done a few videos on that, and one of the things that I wanted to do is get someone here from you guys, and I know Alex and I believe, is it Carrie? Carrie?
Yep, Carrie.
Did an interview with another YouTube and Twitch channel, and I just want to get this information to you guys, the public in our community already, that I feel is sort of like lost. And I reached out, and Russ was like, yeah, do it. And so he got me in touch with Alex, and Alex got me in touch with Chris. And so we're going to be talking about everything, as far as like what comes in the free updates. And he's got some goodies for us as well on that. And then, of course, paid content we're going to go into. But we're going to divide this podcast into those two parts. And I think that's sort of important. And most of this information, of course, is available over at their website. And you can check. But I think you're going to talk about a few of those things. So let's go dive into the free updates. Now, if someone is, because I had someone in my Twitch chat today and said, what does it mean with the DLC, as far as like in regards, and you are going to get a free basically update to the game, and this includes some of the things you're going to talk about today. And then you've got the separate stuff that if you don't get the DLC, you won't have access to, but you're still able to play the game with the free updates. So just to clarify that, right? So let's talk about the free updates.
Well, basically, what's going to happen is that when Heroes of the Intersphere DLC is set to release, it will basically be released with another update that does come for free for people who, for pretty much anyone who owns the game. So you don't have to have Heroes of the Intersphere to get this content that we're about to talk about here.
Okay. And of course, like I said, all this is available on the website, but you guys have, and this is one of those things where I just wanted to clarify, it's keep tabs on the Intersphere, Intersphere news to check out when borders changes and stuff like that. New tech becomes available. To me, that sounds a lot like what we have in with BattleTech, one of the mods. I think Rogue Tech and BTA both have it, but basically it's like the news feed. It's like it's almost like MRBC news sort of thing, and it pops up and it like keeps you up to date of when events, whether there's a battle or maybe House Davian is at arms with Liao, or Liao and the St. Ives Compact. There's conflicts going on. That is this sounds like is that basically what we're talking about?
So it's not going to be exactly that. So for the Intersphere News feature, it's actually there to kind of help facilitate some of the stuff that already exists in the game.
Okay.
So as those who have played the game know, there is a timeline for the greater BattleTech universe, and we do adhere to that timeline for Mechwarrior 5. So what that means is that things like the Cataphract and the Wolfhound are only available in certain factions, and they're only available at certain times once they've actually been developed in the production year from the lore itself. And in Mech 5, all of this stuff is pretty much kind of hidden behind, the game code. So it's like stuff that happens really under the hood and not really forward facing to the players. So things like the lost tech that like pulse lasers and LBX cannons and gauze rifles that appear as rare weapon drops in the early game, just suddenly magically appear in the store in the late game, and there's not really anything to kind of explain.
There's no context to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so what the news item feature is really going to do is we're really focusing on kind of not just presenting the lore of the universe itself, but also trying to present the lore as it relates to the various systems that already exist within Mechwarrior 5. Okay. So when certain weapon technologies get developed and by who, when certain mechs get developed and also by, who, and also when certain heroes, basically do something heroic that gets their mechs introduced into the hero pool so they can pretty much go around. A lot of stuff, especially in the case of the hero mechs where they're based on things from the lore, there's a mindset to, pretty much keep to the lore in the franchise, but because we don't really have anything in the current game that really highlights all that stuff, this is a feature that is going to kind of slot in and to explain pretty much what's happening and why, and where you can pretty much get those things. Like, for example, the Cataphract is developed by House Lao, so you wouldn't be able to find it in Davion space or like Karita space, so this will basically kind of announce to the world or the Intersphere that the Cataphract has now rolled out and House Liao is the one who developed it, kind of thing.
So, like in the question of like, when ECM and the Raven tech starts coming out and all that stuff, I'm assuming that's going to be broadcast. So, question here: if you, we're talking about this is news feed, so this would be available to everyone. But if you don't have the DLC, will these news feeds still happen? As far as like new tech, will it be like, hey, there's new tech, but you don't have that, you don't have access to that? How does that work?
So some DLC or some of the stories will be segregated based on whether you own the DLC or not. We are thinking of maybe keeping a few of them around. Like, for example, so the Archer Tempest is going to be introduced with Heroes of the Intersphere DLC. So that mech in particular has a lot of significance in the lore, and even though it technically isn't available in the vanilla version, that story might be too big to just not include in the newsfeed, so we might keep that in as a fluff item. Whereas things like ECM and things that relate directly to things that you can buy, especially when it comes to chassis that don't exist, like when the Charger 1A5 gets produced, that would probably be a story that is only going to show up if you own the DLC, because that's an entire mech chassis that you don't own in the vanilla version. But there is going to pretty much be a large amount of content that is still there for the vanilla version of the game that anyone that pretty much downloads the free update will pretty much be able to get.
Okay. Now you sent me a few images. Do we want to show any of those off, or one of those relevant to?
Sure. The newsfeed one would probably be relevant to what we're talking about.
Let me just go ahead and pull that up for everybody. Just give me one moment. And I'm totally. Oh, there we go. Okay. I was like, too many folders and. All right. So this is the. Okay. So that's one. That's the timeline one, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go pull that up, and this is gonna go over our faces, people. So just give me a second. Just wanted to verify with Chris before I show you. And so this is an example of what you're gonna see. All right, so I'm pulling that up. It's gonna cover our face here for a moment so it can go full screen here. And so what we're looking at is it looks to be the home screen, and it looks to be a timeline, and it says current date May 29th, 2016. So this would be about a year-ish around when you first start the game, and has April 2016. Looks like arms, independent forces for low tech. Anyways, basically weapon information. But then February, it also, before that, it had a Karita forces begin withdrawal. So again, from Mallory's world, some context to what's going on in the universe here. So, okay. So when you're on the home screen, is this something that's like a scrolling marquee? Is it sort of like a window that just does it? Where is it, on the left or right, or is it just one of those things where you have to click on and then it pops up?
It's going to be in the low center, or at least that's where we're positioning it right now.
Okay.
But it's basically going to be a scrolling marquee, very similar to pretty much, if you watch the news and it scrolls at the bottom and everything.
Okay.
For the latest stories. So it will showcase latest stories that happened within probably about a 2-month period of time, just because we have to account for long jump ship trips. And if you click on it, it'll basically expand into this window that you guys see right here, and you can basically scrub through the entire timeline so you can read up on anything that you've missed.
Okay. So does any of this tie into any events that can be playable at all?
Currently, not right, really. As far as the events, it's mostly tied into the pre-existing systems that are there in regards to like when certain mechs pretty much get introduced into the market pools, when hero mechs become available in the market pools, and also when a lot of the weapons, pretty much kind of come to the forefront. And in addition to that, we're also using it as a way to kind of present some of the mechanics that might not be immediately apparent to the players. Like, for example, the Desperate for Arms, independent forces turn to low-tech alternatives story that you have up here kind of, give some flavor to the upcoming DLC weapons of the chemical lasers and the ballistic rifles. But it also gives the players like hints that, these are weapons that are not necessarily used by the great houses. And in order to pretty much find these weapons, you're going to have to look in places that are beyond the gaze of the great houses.
Okay. I was just wondering, I didn't know if like it was going to be tied into like for the quest system. Obviously, that discussion is for the paid, but I didn't know if like, hey, this battle's going on over here, mercenaries are needed, sort of thing.
Yeah, no, there's not going to be. We don't have any kind of system similar to like the Flashpoint system from the HBS BattleTech. For the most part, our quests exist, pretty much at any point in time, depending on player progress. So we may be able to, examine that in future updates, but for at least this initial rollout, it's mostly going to be there to kind of, not only present lore stories that didn't exist before in the vanilla release of the game, but also to kind of better explain or at least better hint to like when certain things actually happen in the timeline that already happened in the vanilla version, but it's just kind of hidden to the players in the current game.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. All right. So that's coming. I think that's cool, especially just from the context. Fluff and lore is always good, especially if someone's coming in and they don't know about it. And even someone that's played like myself, you'll learn something new. So, okay. Next on the tab, go ahead.
Oh, and like anything, we are setting this up with mod support in mind, so it should be easy enough for if you guys are really into the lore of the universe and we don't really cover what you would have wanted to see with certain battles and stuff, because this initial release is going to be mostly focused on things that directly relate to the gameplay within Mechwarrior 5 itself. But if you want more pure lore items, we are going to include a bunch in the initial release, but probably, the Battletech universe, as many know, is a very dense universe when it comes to lore. So there is definitely ample opportunity to expand on this for the modders that wish to see this timeline populated with much more stories than what we'll release with.
Okay, cool. The first thing that popped in my head was having it narrated. Like when it pops up, you'd have someone. I mean, that's definitely possible in the community. I mean, really, it's just recorded lines. Finding someone who's got a, good reading voice. I don't know. That'd be cool.
It's going to be that's a lot of recorded lines though, because
dude, the community, man. I'm telling.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
We got to cover 40 years of timeline here. Yeah. So.
All right. So the next one up is pretty vague, but I would assume that's because it's quality of life fixes. What would that entail? Is there anything you can specific say? I mean, about that?
So, just going off of what the website says, the LOS radar, the full 360 LOS radar. So, as many know, we imported pretty much the radar mechanics from MWO or Mechwarrior Online, and that doesn't necessarily work as well in a 4v4 or 4-player PvE experience compared to a 12v12 PvP experience. So we are going to be making some baseline adjustments to the way that the radar pretty much works. It is still going to be line of sight, but by default, it's pretty much going to be 360 kind of sensing, so that way you can kind of detect when that mech that you might not have seen and that when you pass through gets into your rear arc, and so you can kind of detect it when he passes the mountain rather than when he's shooting you in the back.
Okay. And do we have is it like 800 meters like MWO or?
Yeah, it'll still be 800 meters like it is in the release. So it is still pretty much the sensor range that you currently have in game, but it will pretty much be changed to be the full 360 LOS radar. And in addition to that, we're also going to be making some changes to the way that ally detection works. Mostly, we're going to have allies pretty much be detected at all times, and you don't have to see them within LOS.
Okay.
And that's also to facilitate some stuff with the new game modes, which we'll get to later in the podcast.
Okay. Obviously, that'll be cool, especially for our mod. We've talked about that. Is that can that be set on a per mech, or is that just a universal?
It's going to be a universal thing, and the main, as you'll see when we get to the beachhead gameplay, like what we really want to do is make sure that when we introduce, allied forces mid-mission for some of these game modes, that you actually have your bearings as to where exactly they are. Because right now, when they kind of like show up over a kilometer away and outside of LOS, it's next to impossible to find them unless we pretty much allow them to always be unveiled. So we're just going to be changing that across the game to universally unveil things.
Okay, and then of course we've got ambient and area-based effects, heat effects, which I would assume is like if you're on a volcanic planet, it's probably going to be hotter. If you're on a winter planet, it's going to be colder. Is that fair enough?
Yep. We already have that in and working in the internal builds, but we're still playing around with tuning on that front because obviously we don't want to make it. The Succession Wars is definitely a lot different from MWO, where double heat sinks are prevalent everywhere. So we don't want to get it to where you hit, like, land on a volcano planet early in the game, just can't shoot anything because you have single heat sinks. So we're still in the process of tuning everything, but that is coming.
And of course, you have still much more to come. Do you have anything else to add as far as the free update?
So we're not going to be able to go through everything, mostly because we're still in the process of determining that right now. But I think needless to say that anything that really kind of helps the player experience for what is already there, we're going to be kind of expanding on, as well as any kind of thing that we develop in the pursuit of making some of the DLC content. If we have to make any changes to the baseline game, that those will go out with the free versions. Much to the same way that we're going to be making changes to the way that allies display on the screen. We're also looking into ways to improve just mech spawning in general. Also, mech selection or enemy selection in general. Just so you see a bit more manticores and demolishers rather than a bunch of harassers. So all those will pretty much be in the free update. And the last bit that we can talk about is going to be the Mech Database, which Phil, you have a screenshot of.
All right. And in regards, I think you'd make a lot of people happy with the tanks and stuff not spawning as much, which is funny because regardless of how bad, like you think it is when you're in the mech with our Mech Commander thing, you literally can see it. And there's nothing like, there's no more extra space because you're so zoomed out. So that's, we're going to be tackling like how to handle that in the near future, which again, like it is what it is sometimes. But all right, so here we have the next screen, and this is, you called it the Mech Database, and this looks to be in the Operations tab.
Yes, it is. So this is going to be coming with the free update as well, and pretty much kind of like what we were talking about before, where we're going to be iterating and kind of exposing a lot of these elements that already exist within Mechwarrior 5, but are not very clear to a lot of the players at the moment. The Mech Database is mostly going to be here to not only kind of chart what kind of mechs are out there, but more importantly, what mechs you've collected across your travels within the Intersphere, but also where to actually find these mechs. As we've pretty much said before, these mechs do appear at different frequencies when you fight different factions, and in fact, some mechs are unique to certain factions. And this is something that you can currently find in the vanilla game if you basically go to the view intel button when you basically go to a mission. But the problem with the view intel button is really that only is localized to the mechs that you can pretty much encounter within that system, and don't ever get like a global picture of I'm hunting this particular mech, like where can I find it. And so that is pretty much where the Mech Database comes in, where it will basically chart pretty much all the mechs that you've encountered, all the ones that you have basically acquired throughout your play session, but also it will give faction details and faction rarity to everything as well.
So what you've basically done here is you've made mech Pokemon where everybody's got to collect them all. I mean, really, that's what this is. It's basically saying, if you're wanting this. Okay, so, and if you're listening to this audio-wise, it's, I think we'll of course, you'll need to go look at this, but it's basically scrolling on the left side up and down. Looks like alphabetical of the chassis, so you can imagine like Atlas all the way down to the Zeus, and then in the middle it shows the mech, the 3D looks the 3D model. There's a little bit of information around the knees, and then on the right it gives you like the rarity depending on the faction, what variants, i.e. in this case it's a Victor. There's different variants, obviously, the 9A1, the 9B, the 9S, right? The Dragon Slayer, stuff like that. So, I'm assuming the Dragon Slayer, and
Yeah, you can see the Dragon Slayer all the way down there.
okay, there we go. Oh yeah,
It's
right at the
it's
bottom.
the one that's
Oh,
just the
just
sliver.
there,
So.
just the sliver. All right, sneaky. Okay, so and of course, this is going to be part of the free DLC, correct?
Yes.
Part of the DLC. Okay, so
free update
okay.
that coincides with the DLC.
Gotcha. All right, so we've got that. All right. Let's see. Off the top of my head, as far as I think with a lot of people out there, the biggest thing spawning was probably the number one issue, especially when the game came out. Also, I know there was a bug found by the mod community. Shout out to the mod community. You guys literally have dove in there and discovered a bug that they let PGI know about, which was the BV rating and how certain mechs wouldn't show up, even though you progress. So that's why you got spammed with like a bunch of like cicadas and like low end stuff, and you weren't seen as nice of stuff. So I know that. I don't know if that's obviously coming out before then, but I could assume by then, hopefully, we'll see that fixed.
Yeah,
as well.
We're going to be completely changing the way that mechs get selected in missions. So we're moving away more from random selections throughout the entire roster of what could happen to moving more towards rolling for certain decks and then drawing mechs from that deck itself.
Okay.
So we can hopefully alleviate a lot of the problems that the mod community brought up, in addition to kind of improving what you see throughout all of that.
Okay. So that's it for the free stuff. What?
One last thing that I didn't get a screenshot of, but I did want to mention is that the kind of benefiting the entire DLC theme around Heroes of the Intersphere, we will be making a conscious effort with this release to have all of the Hero Mech unique skins pretty much in the game, in addition to unique descriptions and kind of lore readouts for those Hero Mechs. So where this Victor 9B has kind of the generic Victor kind of description for all of the chassis for the Victor, we'll have individual kind of lore readouts for the hero mechs and the people who pilot them in kind of the same section.
Okay. All right, cool. Look forward to obviously seeing that, and I'm assuming we can probably jump right into the paid stuff, and I think I'm assuming those is the heroes part of quest systems, and like you go on like a little mini quest about that, or do you wanna talk about that when we get to it? My segueing, my squirreling.
So it's going to be a bit of both. There are going to be some heroes that are available through quest lines that, and let's be clear here, we're now talking about paid DLC.
Yes, paid DLC.
Yeah, so there's going to be heroes that are only available through completion of quest lines that are going to be brand new for this DLC mission. So new mission strings with a lot of authored missions is what we call them internally, basically the handmade missions. And there's also going to be new hero mechs that are not available in the vanilla release of the game, but will be pretty much available very similar to how the current hero mechs are distributed, which is pretty much adding to the pool when certain thresholds within the timeline are met. I already mentioned the Archer Tempest will be among them, but a lot more, that will, I think we'll have a full list, closer to release. But the Archer Tempest is one of those that would be more in the standard hero pool.
Okay, so I didn't mean derail, because we can start at the top if someone's following along as well, because we're sort of going on the new career mode. Let's talk about this, because it says basically start from scratch. You get to choose from a great house. You import your progress from original campaign. Okay, so walk me through what this means. Does this mean like you get done with, let's just say you do the campaign? Is this like picking up from there, or is this it's a brand new start? Why is there any benefit from choosing the houses? Is that just like affiliation? What does that mean?
So the career mode is basically going to be a complete rebalance of the Intersphere. So where the campaign mode basically kind of drives you along a linear path towards the end of the storyline of Mechwarrior 5. Career mode is a more open-ended. Here is the inner sphere. You are choosing your starting place within the inner sphere, and then you have to venture out into the inner sphere on your own. And all the war zones will pretty much be rebalanced for the career mode to kind of make new starting zones and make new challenge spots. So it won't, and it'll be constructed in a way that's a much more open-ended compared to how it has been in the campaign mode.
Okay. But what does this mean? So, like, let's just say I've played the game already. I've done the entire, campaign. I did the last missions. I've just been bouncing around the inner sphere. It's like 3,100, what does this mean for me? Like, what? So is that when I kick off career mode, or is it I'm selecting career mode back at the title screen?
So when you start a new career, you start back at 3015, but you can either choose to basically start fresh from 3015 with a starting lance that is unique to every house start that we have in the game, or you can import your old data from your campaign play to basically say, okay, I'm going to bring everything in, and you can either import it in to make it a much more sandbox experience and just venture around and have fun, or you can pretty much treat it as pretty much its own its own career campaign. So you start fresh, and you have to now go forth and make your way, but in a much more open-ended nature.
Okay. So if I have basically two choices. I can start using one of the 5 houses as like a starting lance, right? And they'd have a different combination of a lance, right? Like, yep. I get that. Or I can import what I've already been playing, and I could have all my mechs. Is that already right?
All your mechs, all your starter fun. For something like that, it's seen much more as kind of a more sandbox experience for those who just want to start in 3015 and just pretty much go through with everything that they've already acquired, just messing around with the system with the completely rebalanced map.
Okay. So next part, and we've had no information, so I don't know if you can provide it, but dang, it'd be really nice. Obviously, you've got the career paths, right? Jobs to unlock career path rewards, including new blueprints and quirkening mechs. Now, quirks, man, that's funny enough a word, because me and you worked on the quirks for MWO. What does 5 job? What does that even mean? And then and then it unlocks what are blueprints, and what does quirks entail? So let's start with the jobs. What is job? What does that mean?
Well, let's start with the quirks, because jobs will be a lot easier if we start with quirks. So this is something that's only going to be available to those who pick up the DLC, and it's going to be a new way to pretty much interact and customize the mech. And that is that across completing jobs, you basically acquire these blueprints, which can quirk your mechs in various ways. The mechs will basically have a set amount of slots per mech that you can effectively slot in quirks that Phil, you and I are probably very familiar with, such as mobility quirks, weapon quirks, and various other types that you kind of acquire through the job system and use that as a way to further customize the mechs. And so the only way that you can get these quirks, though, is through the job system, which is basically at a certain point in time, when you reach a certain merc level, you will gain access to a certain a brand new way of taking on effectively side quests that are outside of the standard mission structure. So whereas in the vanilla game, you kind of show up to a system and you now need to pretty much execute jobs for people at that system. These are much more like long-running tasks that can vary depending on the types of jobs that you take on. So some of the jobs could basically be something like an equipment collector, which is that a client is coming to you looking for a certain type of weapon of a certain tier level. And you need to collect these weapons throughout your travels in the Intersphere, hand them in to him, and it will reward you with both, some monetary rewards for getting it, but it will effectively level up a path that will, as you progress along the path, you will unlock blueprints that can then be used to quirk your mechs.
Okay, so quirks, assuming, are they going to be the normal, like, there's offensive, defensive, mobility, info, sort of like information warfare? Is that what we're talking about?
Probably very light on the information warfare side of things. It's not going to be like MWO because Infotech and Mechwarrior 5 is very streamlined compared to how it has been in Mechwarrior Online.
Okay.
So there are going to be a few Infotech stuff like increasing the sensor range and various other things that I won't really get into right this second.
Okay.
But for the most part, the things that are there are going to be a lot less than what you would find in like Mechwarrior Online.
Okay, and you said this is a mechs will only have X amount of slots, and
yes,
okay,
and certain quirks will take up certain amount of slots. So you might find a certain quirk that takes up 2 slots, but has a more enhanced effect, whereas one might take 1 slot.
Okay, and I'm assuming that's going to be moddable as well, like because you guys built the system, or do we know?
I imagine it is. I'm not sure as familiar with the backend on that system, but I imagine, like everything else, we are building the game with mods in mind.
Okay, so if not, Alec, make it so. All right, that's it. That's all we had to say. All right, cool. So you do jobs. There are these like basically like mini quests where you may have to do a mission or find equipment and turn them in, and you get these blueprints. Is there any process like you have to have X? Like, is it one of those like you have to find 5 blueprints for this particular thing, or is it like is it just one and you collect them?
Not for the blueprint side of things. So once you unlock a blueprint, you pretty much unlock it permanently, or at least that's how it's currently tuned.
On a per chassis, or
no. It is very like if you. As it's currently tuned in our internal builds, and keep in mind this is all subject to change before or release, but as it is currently being tested right now, let's say you pick up a turn speed 5% or 10-15% blueprint. So you unlock that through completing a quest line. You have now unlocked that permanently, and you can now assign it to pretty much any of your mechs.
But how many uses?
It's unlimited uses currently, and keep in mind, as it's being tested right now, it is unlimited uses.
Okay, but is it like one item? Like if I put it on a hunchback, it's not still there. It's on the hunchback. I can't then also put in, because I only have one. I guess that's what I'm saying.
No, you can put it on. It's basically a blueprint for how Fahad can basically.
Okay, that makes sense.
It is going to. You can apply it to all your mechs, but we are planning on having both monetary costs in addition to timeline costs. So if you are going to be quirking your mech, it is going to take both time and resources to pretty much get it in a state where it is quirked.
Okay. I didn't tell you before the podcast, but you said his name, so you have to drink. I just want to let you know that. I didn't bring up some Tambiki Dark. I don't know. All right, so expanded Intersphere map that includes 61 total war zones. It says plus 18, 34 industrial hubs, 55 quest lines, plus 11, recrafted for less linear, more open exploration. So let's tackle that at the very beginning. War zones in the base game, you start in Davian space and you basically work it's basically a clockwise, and the difficulty gets harder. And one of the things when I completed it was, and I remember telling Russ on, I forget what it was pocket, whatever it was. I was like, it would be cool if those were spread everywhere. So there was level 15s in Davian space in certain, and level 15s in Steiner and Merrick and blah blah blah, and then same thing with all the other ones. Is that sort of what's going on now? They've been shaken
for the career mode, that's how things are going. Okay. Campaign might still have a few, because the main goal of campaign is to make sure that players don't get lost and need to go along the path. So So campaign, we're not sure if we're going to be introducing the new war zones too, but for the career mode, it's the entire point is to basically open up the Intersphere so you can
Okay.
explore anywhere.
And obviously, industrial hubs, that's a no-brainer. The quest lines,
Mhm.
I think the quest lines are a great addition. They felt to me just like flashpoints from HBS, where you have a mission and then it escalates and it go to another planet. One of the things that I always felt is that it could have actually just been there on the planet too. I didn't know if you guys had thought about that. Of instead of always having to travel, maybe it's just like, hey, it's on another part of the same planet, or it's on the other town, or something like
Or
that,
as part of a multi-mission,
or
maybe.
part of a multi-mission, something like that, right? So quest
So,
lines, let's talk about that.
so some quest lines will be very similar to how they are in the campaign, but obviously, we do want to kind of try to play around with it a little bit. I can't confirm or deny that they'll be exactly as how you're putting it out, because again, that comes down to testing and making sure that we don't introduce any new bugs into the system. But the goal is to basically, with at least within the context of the new quest that we are introducing, to have slightly different from what we have been doing for campaign. At least that's the overall goal. But it's going to still play out in a very similar way.
Okay, so what is more open exploration? What does that mean?
That's going to pretty much be in the fact that we're adding new war zones, and also with the career mode, we're pretty much throwing you into one corner of the inner sphere and telling you just to go hog wild, just
Okay.
to go wherever you want.
Okay. Cool idea we were talking about is maybe there's planets that aren't part of war zones that you go to. Maybe there's some experimental stuff. That's what, I'm just tossing that out there. All right.
The
Hero
inner sphere is
mechs.
a very big place, so.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, one of the things we were talking about, which was there's no, other than just going to an industrial hub or going to do a mission, why do I need to go to that planet that isn't a part of any of that there's nothing going on?
Mhm.
One of the ideas that we had is you actually have an event going on there, and it could just be a simple thing of maybe exploration where you need to go to point A, point B. But of course, that maybe turns up nothing, but maybe there's some Star League stuff, or maybe there's a base you run into, or maybe Comstar's there doing stuff they're not supposed to be, and you gotta kill them. I don't know, but that was an idea. I didn't know. So yeah. Anyways, that's for maybe our project. I don't know. Whatever. Hunt down 7 heroes and their hero mechs in a story-driven hero quests. Now, I'm assuming, is this separate from the quest lines we were just talking about, or is this additional as well?
There are going to be a few new side quests, but these are going to be the ones that are you can. Some of these new quest lines will have hero mechs that you
Okay.
can collect at the end of them.
Okay. And of course, we're talking about the Corsair, Vulcan, Charger, Automotive Cheat, Dervish, Champion, and the Marauder 2. I like the Marauder 2. I like it in the footage. I think it's going to look good in our mod as well.
Thing to keep in mind, though, is that we do keep it fairly close to the rarities that you see in the universe. So the Marauder 2 in particular is going to be a very rare mech in general.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm assuming story driven. I'm going to guess like it's going to pop up. You'll do it and you'll go through the similar experience that we had in the originals with quests. So can you give any more details about that?
We will have new authored missions or handcrafted missions, so not the proc type missions that some have been, accustomed to in the vanilla campaign. And we are playing around with what you are going to be doing in those missions, and
Okay.
those will be, a part of the standard chain that you see here.
Okay. And of course, we have new variants, 50 plus. Again, these are not available to if you don't have the paid DLC.
Yes, in fact,
Okay.
if you go back to the mech decks, we will make it pretty clear in the UI, pretty much where those um, where those DLC chassis will come in.
Okay. Now, The next part, and this is why I think it's important to bring that up, is you bring up equipment, ECM. I have questions about that. The implementation, there's a bunch here. The reason I was bringing that up is if you don't have the DLC, you won't be running into enemies that have that. Is that correct?
Correct. So pretty much if you do not own the DLC, you will not find any mechs that have ECM or EW equipment, BAP, or any of those kind of DLC specific equipment.
Okay.
So they will not show up as enemies, and you will not see them in the marketplace.
Can we talk about ECM? Is that something that, how is that going to work? Is it like MWO where basically just, someone can't lock onto you? Is that basically the...
No, it is not going to work like that. So it will be similar to MWO in that it will reduce the detection range that the AI will be able to find you at. So it'll definitely make you harder to be spotted by the AI. But as far as missile locks and various other things, that is stuff that won't happen. And in its place, what will happen is if you get close enough to enemies, you could effectively scramble their targeting, and it will make you harder to hit. So it pretty much provides a debuff to pretty much hitting if you can close the distance on them.
Okay.
And we'll be able to see that in action with later when we look at the beachhead mission.
Okay. What is EWECM?
So that is going to be
That's
electronic. Yes, it is. So that's going to be pretty much the electronic warfare equipment. So those who are familiar with the lore pretty much know that ECM is effectively lost tech within the timeline of our game. And so ECM and ECM mechs are not going to be readily available for a good amount of the campaign unless you find some very rare chassis or stumble upon some lost tech variants that happen to have them included. So for those who know the lore, at a certain point in time, the Capellan Confederation basically creates this one mech called the Raven. And the Raven that was introduced in the vanilla game actually is one of the offshoots of the original one. The original Raven came with something called electronic warfare equipment. And so what that was effectively an inferior ECM, but one that was pretty much developed during the Succession War time. And I think that's like one thing that we should keep in mind with Mechwarrior 5 is that we're not in the Civil War timeline. We're not in the Jihad or the clan invasion kind of eras of the Battletech universe. We're pretty much in the Succession Wars. And so this is kind of a version of ECM that is going to be inferior to ECM in many ways, but it will be much more readily available within the time until you pretty much can find ECM as a piece of lost tech.
Okay. We've got BAP, Beagle Active Probe. Assuming does it assist in locking? Is it just an expansion of sensors? How does this work?
So BAP is going to be completely different from how it is in Mechwarrior Online. So BAP is going to be pretty much it's going to not only increase your sensor range like it does in MWO, but the headlining feature of BAP is actually going to be that it is radar that pierces through LOS. So where we said before, we are introducing 360 LOS detection rate, but with BAP, you can actually detect things behind cover at certain rates. And that means that you can still fully lock onto targets. So with BAP, you can actually detect things behind cover without them seeing you and coordinate fire for LRMs in that way, rather than kind of having it be an augmentation for the LRM boat itself.
Okay. EWAP.
So electronic warfare equipment. In the lore, what ended up happening was the EW equipment in the lore is pretty much a combination of ECM and BAP rolled into a single package. So what we did with Mechwarrior 5 to kind of get around that and have it work within the within our systems is we broke it up into two separate pieces of technology. So you have effectively the electronic warfare ECM package and the electronic warfare BAP package. So again, it's going to be kind of an inferior version to BAP and ECM, but it's going to be much more readily available given the timeline of our game.
Okay.
And if you are able to, pretty much find a Lost Tech version of ECM, you can effectively sub out the electronic warfare version of that for the much more modern or Lost Tech version of that piece of equipment.
All right. Next up is Mask, and I hope you have the right answer for this because
And what's that?
I'm going to be picky. My main issue with it in MWO is I never liked the idea that it damaged your internal structure. I think it should have increased your heat. It should have been spiking your heat, but that's just me. I think I would have liked that better. Am I anywhere near? Or are we doing the structure?
Nope.
We're doing something else.
Well, here's the thing: is that we do take a look at pretty much how this stuff works within the lore when it comes to designing what the effects of these things do. And in the case of Mask, it pretty much is putting stress on the leg actuators that does damage them. And in other versions of the game, it is a much more catastrophic effect than providing just structure damage. But one thing I will say, though, is that we are not balancing this for a PvP experience. And so we are much more liberal with the amount of benefits that you can get from it. So what that pretty much means is that you will be able to kind of engage Mask and use it for longer spurts of time. But there will be like still a bit of a cooldown where if you do overtax it, you will continue to take damage.
All right. It's your call. It's your call. No. All right. Supercharger, man.
So again, much like Mask being Lost Tech, Supercharger is pretty much something that exists within the time period of the Succession Wars. And but unlike Mask, it actually is something that is not really widely seen in the house armies. And so this becomes much like what we'll talk about with mech rifles and chem lasers, something that you'll find much more readily available in pirate and insurgent factions and periphery factions more than the house units.
Okay.
And that can effectively be upgraded to Mask, where it effectively acts very similar to Mask, but there are some key differences to it. But it acts as a way of kind of introducing that kind of interaction with the players earlier on in the timeline, and also having mechs with the Supercharger capability introduced, which can then be later upgraded as you find, the Mask equipment, because again, it is Lost Tech for a good amount of the Mechwarrior 5 timeline.
Okay, so we've got new weapons, chem lasers, short burst lasers, mech rifles. Is that the only weapons that are being introduced, or are there more?
There is going to be I think the only one that isn't listed there is going to be Stream SRMs. Those are going to be like the big ones that are introduced. So chem lasers and mech rifles are going to be completely new weapons, whereas short burst lasers are effectively just standard lasers and ER lasers, but with a different variant of flavor to them, in much the same way that streamfire weapons for LRMs or the cluster rounds the streamfire rounds for ballistics as well for the autocannons.
Okay. All right. New procedural mission type, and that's actually what we've got an entire video for you guys, so I hope you're excited. I'm excited because I get to watch it. And it's got artillery strikes, emplacements, and of course new UI as well, and we'll be watching that shortly. So no really need to talk about that just yet. Do we on the footage do we have the new moon biome and moon base garrison or no?
No,
Okay.
mostly because that we really wanted to highlight the beachhead mission, and unfortunately with the moon biome, the explosion sounds and everything aren't as dramatic.
It's all right. I've got us covered. So on the images on the images on the website, we've got it looks a lot like a mixture of an updated HPG, if you will, the aesthetics of the the moon biome and stuff like that. So that's what it looks like on their website. And this is the champion, obviously. And then we've got and this is the one with the Marauder as well, the Marauder 2. That's their biome. So I just grabbed these, so we had them. So There we have it. And of course, because you guys have the heat effects, that'll be interesting how you implement that. I wonder if you're going to run hotter or cooler. Of course, there's another biome. Cool thing too, I definitely dig the aesthetic with the glowy lights and the installations and stuff. Definitely adds a effect. And of course, we have the charger, and this was one of the older photos as well. But so we have the moon biome as well coming. So very cool.
Actually, I'm downloading something that I think Matt showed on Discord that might show off the moon biome a little bit better.
All right.
So give me just 1 second.
We're doing things, guys, live. All right.
We can edit this out if it drags on too long. Okay, where did this thing drop on my goddamn desktop? Oh, that's not what I was looking for.
All right.
Okay, hold on. No shit.
All right. Let's just move on. It's all right.
But if you look it up, there is basically a video of all of the new DLC mechs basically walking as far as the animation goes, and that will show off the new moon biome.
All right, so I think it's about time. I've got the movie ready to go. You have it on. I want you to
let me load it up.
Load it up, and we're gonna watch. I'll let you know when I pause, so we'll walk through this. We're obviously gonna do the best we can here, guys. So
a few disclaimers before we go. Oh, and actually, hold on, Phil. Let me just stop you right here. When you're editing this together, do you mind if you put your head in the reaction over like that watermark that says screenshot?
Are you talking about the?
It'll say like here's the Intersphere work in progress screen, like, and it'll say screenshot despite the fact that it's a video.
Well, I was just gonna play it just entirely without even my head on there. That's what I was gonna.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine. No one's gonna roast you guys.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me move this up here. All right, so I just pulled it up. We're gonna go ahead and press play, and I'll let you know when I pause it. Sound good?
Okay.
So 3, 2, 1, click.
Defense for this planet. Once you've captured this installation, our employer will be able to land their invasion force. I'll be waiting nearby to pick you up.
Our employers can't land dropships until the satellite relays controlling air and orbital weapons are destroyed. Destroy them.
There are several artillery batteries in the area. Search for them and silence those guns.
I mean, obviously.
So the main objective.
Go ahead.
So the main objective of this mode is pretty much going to be that you have been hired by your
commander.
You have been hired by your employers as the vanguard of an invasion force.
Okay.
So it is your job to pretty much clear the landing pad for the incoming invasion.
Okay,
so
let's go pause here. I've noticed on the UI on the ground, you're getting these indicators. Obviously, we talked about artillery. Does this have something to do with artillery?
It does.
Okay.
So the commander, once you're spotted by the defending forces, you will basically be opened on with all of the defenders, including any kind of artillery batteries that are in the area.
Okay.
And there's often a lot of them.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Press play. Okay. We're at 44 seconds, so here we go.
Okay.
Okay, I just saw the heavy rifle fire. That had a very clunky... Okay, I'm assuming that's the artillery coming in that I can hear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we're blowing up the satellite dishes right now. Okay, so satellite dishes down. more artillery has just been called on you. You're walking around it. Okay, you can hear. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's cool effects on the ground. So it's like, okay, I like that. I like the sound of that. Nice thud, thump. It's definitely a little bit more of an immersive, you know, combat experience as well too. It's like they're being proactive and trying to kill you.
Oh yes, they are.
Target acquired. Target destroyed.
Oh, there's an artillery piece. So is there a process in these missions? Like, do you have to kill the one before the other, or could you just get past the? Is it the satellite dishes make them really accurate, or what is the process there?
So the main objective is to take the landing zone at the main objective marker. That's in like 1,000 meters out right now, and you can choose to take that without taking out the artillery batteries, but they are going to be shelling you relentlessly
The entire time. Okay.
Yes, if you don't take them out. Now, as you're basically trying to clear away for the invasion force, taking out the satellite installations will actually allow additional reinforcements to enter the match and help you pretty much take. So both of these are optional objectives. You do not need to take them out if you don't want to, but it is going to be exponentially more difficult for you to take those, pretty much clear the landing facilities if the artillery are constantly bombarding you, especially because, as Rihanna said at the beginning of the mission, these are only the artillery installations that they know about, and so there is a chance that additional artillery pieces might be called upon, even if you clear these out.
Okay, and we're also seeing the stream SRMs here as well. Looks very much like a MRM, but just obviously shorter range.
Radar dish down.
A lot less projectiles as well.
Let's get that thing.
Obviously, yeah. Okay, so we got a dervish showing up here.
But also, unlike MRMs as well, these are only placeholder values for this particular demo right here, but in the final game, we will tune it to where the stream SRMs are going to have a bit tighter clustering than the standard SRMs. And so it's going to add that kind of extra skill element in that you have to lead the target throughout the entire stream, but the reward is going to be much tighter spread compared to the standard SRM launcher.
Oh, another thing that we just saw, infantry. And there was a dude that's just trying to shoot. And so they're there. That's something we didn't even talk about. Infantry, is that part of the free or paid only?
So that one I'm actually not 100% positive on, but I do believe it is part of the free update, since that will affect all the kind of global systems with its introduction. But that's also going to be one of those things where don't quote me on it just yet. I believe it's free, but I'm not 100% sure on that front.
Okay, and then of course Beachhead here, what we're seeing is part of the paid DLC, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so now you're running over to this light here.
Ready to start pickup operation.
Okay, it says pickup operations.
The more ballistics, the merrier.
So what's going on there? It says,
So he could have destroyed the building. This is Matt playing. So,
Okay.
If you destroy the building, there's going to be salvage crates, very similar to the first mission of Mechwarrior 5 that can be littered in.
that we've seen no other use of. We may.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are experimenting with it?
No, they will be in, but
Artillery garrison destroyed.
the capacity at which they're in right now is still pretty much being experimented on. They are going to be tied to one of the job systems. One of the job systems is going to be pretty much this quest of going to certain systems and actively trying to find certain items that have been reported in certain systems.
Okay.
And that will involve using those chests. But outside of that, that is still something that we're internally playing around with.
Okay, he's mass murdering infantry.
Yep.
Man, you gotta. Why would you do that, infantry? Like, there's no good here. This is actually a good view of him. Oh no, he just walked literally right over him. Okay. PBIs. Be pretty futile, I guess, unless they have Infernos. Do they have Infernos?
At the moment, they could have either standard rifles or SRM carriers.
Yeah, I mean, I want to...
Or SRM launchers.
Okay, I was going to say... And are they ever on buildings, or is it just strictly on the ground, pretty much?
On the ground for right now. Although, Alex is experimenting with pretty much where to put them.
A salvage crate has been detected somewhere in this vicinity. Can you see it?
Alright, salvage crate. Okay, and that's it. That's actually something we were talking about with our mod stuff, is like, that system was obviously there, and if we could expand it, so now you guys are.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Alright, so he just blew up, obviously he just got that crate. Wow, we still got a lot to show off. Okay.
So, I believe that was the last satellite dish. So, what happens now is pretty much you've cleared a path for your allies to pretty much get a landing party together. So, as Rihanna is pretty much sounding off right now, there'll be an additional dropship that'll drop off an additional fresh lance of mechs that will help reinforce and help you push the main objective.
And of course, the voice acting and stuff, that's not quite done yet. That's why we're just
so we probably should have caveated this well before the mission started. This is obviously just in production alpha footage, so a lot of the voice and dialogue is just a placeholder for right now. A lot of the cues still have to be worked out. Things like the salvage crates, again, they are basically shown much more frequently than they probably will be in the final product, but we're just, debugging it for right now and playing around with it. So this is very much, an in production view of this game.
Gotcha. And it's alright, Matt, if you're watching this, we're not judging you on your piloting skills, but we're definitely judging you.
That's why I had to join him in the champion.
Yeah. Someone had to carry him.
Of course. So as you can see...
we have friendlies now.
Yep. Friendlies are joining the fights.
Okay. And did they come in as a dropship?
Yeah, they come in as a dropship. They currently drop in a little bit back in the field. So if they come in and you're in a really heated fight, you might have to fall back a bit to join up with them if you want them to kind of lead the charge a little bit more. Or, you might need to find yourself pushing on your own until they can pretty much reach up with you, as they did in this case.
Gonna be really cool drop pods, just saying.
They don't really make drop pods in this IP.
Well, I'm just saying modders could.
Oh yeah, sure, modders could.
Let's go, modders. Alright, they're engaging cataphract. So now what is the objective, right? They cleared the area, the team has landed. Are they going to be engaging a larger force, or what's going on here?
So you're at the main facility right now. So you have to eliminate the defending units, at which point it will pretty much trigger the capture mechanic. And you will have to pretty much capture this facility in order to establish effectively a landing zone for the invasion force.
Okay.
Look up. We've got hostile aircraft on approach.
Yeah, the main objective is to pretty much capture a beachhead for an incoming invasion force for your client.
While you're being artilleried inside this base.
Yep.
Okay. That sounds cool.
So this is a case where the artillery batteries that you had destroyed before weren't the only artillery in the field. So by taking this base, the base commander has resorted to desperate measures and has reactivated previously unknown about artillery installations.
Gotcha. Now, do you care about the installation surviving?
Currently, no.
Okay.
The entire idea is that you need to take this facility down in order to establish pretty much the landing zone for...
Gotcha. You just need a clearing.
Invasion.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. You just need to clear. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so everything could die. Gotcha.
Enemy destroyed.
Okay.
And especially where artillery is concerned, oftentimes it usually dies. So it would be very tough to balance, like try to keep it alive when artillery is in play.
Okay, so when artillery, it looks like it's got a central impact zone, and then is that area of effect damage around it?
Yes, there's currently a fall off, so if you're pretty much in that central damage zone, you get impacted a lot more than if you're kind of on the outskirts.
Okay.
Radio chatter indicates
That's gonna be so fun to play with our mod. Oh. I love the sounds of the artillery. They really got that. I mean, it's basically like a giant howitzer. I mean, that's what it looks like.
Target acquired.
Do you can you comment mobile artillery?
I think that in universe it would be kind of equivalent to a mobile thumper cannon. It wouldn't be a long tom. I can tell that much.
Artillery emplacement destroyed.
Yeah, those things are cool. I like that.
Target destroyed.
Okay, and obviously enemy dropship coming in.
Dropped in, Commander. They're heading your way.
Obviously, we've seen containers here, which we haven't seen since the tutorial, and that was one of my critiques about it. Mech repair base, is that something you guys are toying with?
Not at the moment, and mech repair bays were mostly there for the story missions in order to kind of present a bigger challenge and also to make those easier tutorial missions a bit more palatable for the new players. The big thing about mech repair kind of in the field is that it kind of sidesteps a lot of our metagame, which revolves around pretty much taking mechs out of commission for extended periods of time. So if you could basically get a mech repaired in the field, it becomes much more efficient to get it repaired in the field instantaneously than it's going to take to pretty much, get it out of commission for a week or so in, the dropship bay.
Let's keep it that way.
So it's one of those things where we kind of lean on them for the story missions, specifically because we wanted to pretty much throw a little bit more of a challenge to the players in the case of the final mission, and make it a little bit easier for players to get into the game for the early missions. For standard missions, it is a bit of a challenge to kind of introduce them into more of like the procedurally generated missions, only because the only way we can kind of justify that is if we amp up the difficulty with them being included, so we can keep the metagame for the most part intact.
Okay.
Target destroyed.
All right, so basically it looks like you guys are just engaging.
Target acquired.
Now, is this going to be similar if you have the paid DLC, just like all the others? Like, you'll have a demo mission, you'll have a beachhead mission, you'll have an assassination mission, it'll just be a selection? Or was this like a special that doesn't happen all the time?
So Beachhead is going to be a new proc mission style, so you can basically encounter this just like you can encounter assassination in all the other missions.
At all varying difficulties?
Yep, at varying difficulties.
You did mention, obviously, we're getting new mechs and variants. Any vehicles? New vehicles?
Not with this one, at least not planned at the moment.
Okay.
Acquired.
Enemy mech destroyed.
Being a tanker, I have to ask,
Target destroyed.
There's a lot of good Succession War tanks that we would like to include, but I think that it was just one of those things where we really wanted the quality of life improvements, the additional mechs, and the additional features, and they're just, there's always more that we can add, but only so much time we have to get all this stuff put together.
Alright, so obviously we have survived the final assault 1 out of 3. Locate and destroy any remaining artillery. We have 3 out of 5, so of course they're still being artillery when this is happening. Some of those are hitting near the enemies too, so I guess that's war. Sorry guys. Okay, I also just noticed there's an ECM marker right below the mini map.
Operation successful, Commander.
Is that
Yeah, I
because
guess we
this?
should-
Go ahead.
Secure the area.
I guess we should have mentioned that the Griffin 2N that is in our Lance carries an ECM. So that ECM marker that was under the map was basically designated that your mech was under the ECM bubble, and so therefore is harder to detect as far as the AI is concerned. And then if we might have to rewind it a bit, but if you see like the kind of scrambling effect on the HUD for the enemy mechs, that kind of indicates that they're effectively being debuffed with the ECM, and their accuracy is lower.
Gotcha. By the way, my media player just jumped to the next file. So this is going to be conspiracy theory abound. It was a clan mech that someone was doing an animation for. So that's not their stuff. That's my stuff. I swear that has nothing to do. And I'll even prove it right here. I'll show my desktop just really quick so people have no idea. It's this desktop. It looks like 2019. This is a thing someone was working on. So I just want to point that out. That had nothing to do with PGI. Because geez, that's going to be like, oh my God, we knew it. That had nothing to do with you guys.
Don't lie, Phil. You're just doing it to get me in trouble.
No, it literally auto played and it like just went to the next, I guess, file. So anyways, I just wanted to clear that up before Russ is like, what are you showing off? I don't know.
Yep.
Anyways. All right, man.
As mentioned, Mechwarrior 5 is a succession war game for the time.
Sheesh. I'm just saying that was hilarious because I couldn't even call it any better. It was like, of course it would roll right into, and everybody's gonna be like, oh, let's see, I told you. Like all right, so that I'm glad we got to see that. I'm glad we got to walk through and see a playthrough of that because I really felt like the community, a lot of people haven't seen that beachhead mission. I felt it was really important to get that footage out there. And of course, this is slightly different footage than what we saw, I think about a month ago, albeit the Marauder 2 looked really good on that footage. I will say I'm excited for that those mechs, and especially that one for our mod. So... Wow. Okay. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what we just saw. I like I think the artillery, the sound really is cool. I like the UI to where you can sort of see it. And I like the reinforcements aspect. I think that's really cool. I like that you can just sort of punch through if you wanted to. I know some people like to just go and do the objectives, but I feel like if you don't clean those up, I can't imagine like all 4 or 5 of those things shooting at you where you were trying to be in that circle capturing the thing. I don't know how that would be just chaos. And
it's pretty brutal if you don't if you roll extra artillery on the field and you leave all the artillery batteries up, it can get pretty brutal, like in that circle. But one thing to mention as well is that every circle that pretty much appears in the match is spawn based on how many active artilleries are in the field. So even if you take out only one artillery installation, that means that you have one less circle to worry about in future bombardments.
Okay. I was just thinking like in our Mech Commander mod, and of course, quick shout out to Mech Commander Mercenaries and all the other mods that of course are now on the Epic Game Store mod manager, which is really freaking cool. I didn't even talk about that, but that's a whole nother Mech Commander Mercenaries is available to download on Nexus and or now integrated into the mod manager, which is built into Epic Game Store. So Mechwarrior 5 is the first game to feature on that, and very privileged to be on that list, followed by a bunch of other amazing mods like Navid and Mercstar and stuff like that. So yeah, in my head, I'm just thinking that's going to be so much micromanagement for me. But we have a neat tool that you guys don't have. We have slow-mo, so we can just be like, okay, I need you to go this way, I need you to go that way, and then and it goes. So we do have that. So
yeah, the beachhead missions can definitely get intense, especially as you get up in difficulty, because one thing about that demo that even Matt was complaining about was that it's currently tuned around 4.6 mechs, 64 kph mechs can pretty much dodge those artilleries fairly reliably, but at the same time, they have to be conscious of them. But once you start getting into those Atlases and those 54 kph mechs, it starts to get pretty hard to dodge them. So you have to just plow through it or keep yourself mobile.
Gotcha.
So it gets pretty difficult.
W is win. Okay, so that obviously we've covered pretty much everything that's coming out with the DLC. We saw the footage that you guys were able to record and show off.
Yep.
We had a spoiler for Clan Mechs in the future. Joking.
Nope.
I can't believe that was like.
Nope, I can't. I can't let you slide with that.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. If I'd have had any other video file in my downloads, I mean anything, we could have like any other type of mech porn would have been appropriate or anything. But okay, so we talked about the quality of life fixes, the difference between free and what's coming for, and the only thing you weren't necessarily certain was the infantry, but I would assume that would be a no-brainer.
Yes, as I said, anything that usually globally touches all of the other proc missions, I believe is pretty much stuff that will be included in the free update.
Gotcha.
And I think that includes infantry, but I'm not positive on that.
Okay, and are we gonna see these? If you do get the DLC, are you gonna see all these elements? Like if you're doing the campaign aspect, that even though it's linear, are you gonna run into these variants and mechs? And is Beachhead available in the campaign too if you have the DLC?
If you have the DLC, yes.
Okay.
So if you have the DLC, they will show up as pretty much proc missions within the war zones, just like any other mission type.
Okay.
But if you don't have the DLC, the mechs, the tech, and the game modes and biomes that are restricted to the DLC will not show up in your campaign. The only way that they will show up is in various mech decks, and in all of the UI improvements that we have, we will make callouts to mech chassis or mech variants that could be available in the DLC. If you look at if you look back at the mech decks screen that I gave you, there's little icons within the entries that will designate which are DLC mechs and which ones aren't.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you because it needs to be asked. Do we have a price yet for
Nope,
the DLC?
not at the moment.
Okay,
Still
and
being
then
discussed.
second, do we have a release date yet?
Not at the moment. So we're working hard to get it to you guys as soon as we can. But as you saw with the various temp dialogue and various things, there's still a lot of work to go, and we are working diligently to knock it out.
Okay, so I just needed to ask and get a clear answer on that. Okay, I mean, is there anything? Are we missing anything? Do you have anything on your list that we missed? Is there any additional information about anything, regardless of?
I think you wanted to talk about the weapons, and we said to put a pin until after the video.
Okay, so we saw the mech rifle, obviously, and we saw the stream SRMs. I don't think we saw the chem lasers, short burst lasers. Short burst lasers, are we talking about, are they just quick duration, or is it like a bolt, like a Star Wars bolt?
No, it's not a Star Wars bolt. It's still a beam weapon. It's just that it has a shorter duration laser. So it's going to be basically think pretty much the duration of like a pulse laser, but with less damage involved. And so
Okay.
overall, it is going to be like a little bit cooler, have equivalent DPS. But the big things about that is that if you are really good with your aim and trigger discipline, you can get a lot of damage in a lot more focused area with each kind of blast from the laser.
Sounds like a really quirked small pulse or something like that.
Yeah, in the video, the champion that I was driving in the Beachhead video did have short burst lasers, so you can see kind of the duration that we're playing with at the moment. We're still in the process of tuning all of the weapons because we have to account for the different tiers of the weapons as well and how that scales. But for the most part, the short burst lasers are going to be one of those weapons where it's going to be less overall damage per trigger pull, but it's going to be a lot more focused damage with a lot shorter duration. So if you can basically know when to shoot those things, it can do a lot more focused damage on individual components a lot
Okay.
easier.
And then chem lasers, they use ammo, is that correct?
They do.
Okay.
So like mech rifles and superchargers, those are going to be weapons that you're going to find more in pirate forces and periphery forces than you are when you're fighting against the house units. But the main draw with them is that not only are they cheap C-bill wise, but they also are very cool when it comes to laser fire. So if you have an energy mech that you're not really too keen on, climbing the heat curve on, like say a Black Knight or something like that, you can use chem lasers with ammo in them to pretty much get something of equivalent damage and similar profile. It is going to be slightly different than the lasers as far as the overall duration and damage and everything like that. But the main draw of them is that it gives you a beam weapon that is actually heat efficient compared to various other beam weapons out there.
But the trade-off is ammo versus heat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Now you've mentioned pirates and pirate factions and stuff like that. Are you guys adding those areas more? Because I think right now it's not as prevalent to go out there because there's no war zones, there's nothing to interact with. Is that going to be the case now?
So the periphery nations do have some war zones now that do kind of kiss the edge of them. And in the case of the Taurian Concordant, I think that there is even a war zone in the initial game that does kind of go into the Taurian Concordant a little bit. But for the most part, we're fleshing out kind of the back end of the factions. So like kind of Davian by the Tortuga Dominions, Steiner by the Oberon Confederation. So there'll be a little bit more war zones and opportunities to fight those kind of battles a little bit more now. But on the same token, while you can fly to Tortuga Prime, there's not going to be a war zone like out in the deep periphery at the moment.
Okay, and I think that's my only questions as far as regard to that. Okay, well, I just want to say thank you again for taking the time again out of your night to be able to do this, and tell the wife thank you as well for letting you do it, because I know how that works as well.
Oh yes.
But okay, so that's a lot of good information. We covered literally line by line. Is there anything paid that maybe there's like you want to leave a breadcrumb out there? Maybe there's an Easter egg you want to drop, something.
No, we gotta focus on pretty much getting this stuff out. So at the moment, we can't really comment on anything past.
No, I'm saying with this, is there anything that like?
Oh, I see.
You just want to, maybe there's something else in there that you guys like. Well, like.
No one last thing, unfortunately.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
I got you the screenshots and the video.
You did. So just want to say thank you. Thank you again for doing the podcast with me, and again, I'm assuming we're going to get more information as we get closer to launch, whenever that launch is, and we'll hopefully get a price and a release date. Obviously, with the world and the pandemic and stuff still going on, totally understand. Of course, you guys everybody's working from home for the most part. Even though Russ did say during my drunken stream, he did say there are some people that go into the office every once in a while and stuff, but you're in Cali still, right?
Yeah, I'm in the San Francisco area.
He has a lockdown again.
The county I live in just entered the watch list today. Like we were the last ones in the Bay Area. Yeah. But yeah, like for the most part, the team is working remotely, and some people can go in from time to time because naturally it's hard to pretty much do audio effects in your bathroom, like when you have a studio sitting there with no one in it. But so yeah, there are some people that are going into the office, but for the most part, we're all working from home.
Awesome. Well, Chris, it's been a pleasure. It's good catching up with you. And of course, tell the wife hello. Thank you again. I'll be reaching out. Of course, maybe we can do this again in the future for maybe 2021's DLC and whatever the heck that year has to bring with us and all that fun stuff. So, yeah, man, I'm much appreciated. Thank you for answering all the questions. And yeah, I will see you soon.
Bye, everyone.
And of course, this podcast is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you so much for listening and watching my content. And speaking of which, if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure to click that like and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and all that fun stuff. So just like, maybe drop a comment down below. Did you learn something new from the video? I know I did. It was really nice to sit down with Chris, go over those details because we haven't really had those details. So of course, if you did like this, consider hanging out with me throughout the week. I stream on Twitch. The link will be down below, but that is twitch.tv/NGNGTV. Hope to see you there. It's a great time. Again, I've had quite a few of YouTube viewers who've never been to a live stream ever and followed for years come over and they have a blast. Join us on Discord. Again, I'll have this link down below. When you join on Discord though, make sure to go to the Welcome Read channel. All you gotta do is click on that little heart. If you have any problems, just drop a message and we'll get you those roles. And of course, consider becoming a sub on Twitch. Consider becoming one of my patrons. It really does help me. This is my full-time gig. You guys make my dreams come true and supporting my passion. So of course, check that out if you're interested. And of course, don't forget to check out my affiliate link. Again, all this info down below. I'm going to have some new shirts for you guys up on our store very, very soon in August. You guys are going to be excited. We're going to be doing, well, you'll just have to wait and see. Thank you again. This was your local No Guts, No Galaxy Mechwarrior podcast. Signing off for tonight. My name is Phil. Until next time.